Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to Jamie Photography. So, Florence in Italy, what a absolutely wonderful, wonderful place to visit. This is the Ponte Vecchio, the bridge that crosses the river in Florence, and this is about 4:30 in the morning. Best time of the day, always. Get up early. No tourists. Place to yourself. You can see a couple of people jogging on the left-hand side there, but really a wonderful place to visit. Went there a few years ago now. This image is about 5 years old. I shot this image with my Olympus Eon 1 Mark II, which was my chosen camera at the time, and I really enjoyed using that camera for many years. Micro Four Thirds, so it is a quarter of the size of a full frame sensor, but that does give you a few challenges with noise, and we'll talk about a little bit about that in the video as we go through. But what you are able to do is to produce beautiful images, almost regardless of which camera you use. That's the advantage we have now with post-processing and the way we can manage noise. So we're going to do quite some detailed advanced masking inside Lightroom. I'm going to show you some really intricate ways to mix the masking together to give you very, very interesting effects, very subtle effects, to give you a natural look as we've got here. So where did we start? Well, actually the image that we started with was this image here. I exposed for the highlights, knowing that I could recover the shadows, and I really wasn't thinking I could make a huge amount of this, but having looked back over my images, and I always urge you to go back over pictures that you took many years ago, because as you learn more skills with your post-processing, you can actually go back, revisit those images, and actually create some pretty wonderful photographs to look at. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to do a sky replacement. We're going to do this advanced masking I'm talking about. The sky replacement we're going to do in Luminar Neo. Make a change for once, because we normally are using Photoshop, but we're just going to use Lightroom and Luminar Neo as a plugin to Lightroom, and that will give us this effect here. If you have 5 minutes, pop over, have a look at my website. I've got a little bit about me. You can go and look at who I am, the sort of gear that I have. You can just click through and see what I use for my photography. You'll also find that I'm running some workshops this year. That we've got a few spaces left on the September trip, which is English medieval cities. We're going to go to Stonehenge. We're going to start in London and work our way down through Winchester, Salisbury, and Bath. So take a look. All the information is here and what we're going to do. It's a 10-day trip. It includes for all of your hotel, all of your food, all of your travel once you've arrived. So you can have a look. Prices are at the bottom. Also, I have a sky pack available. I'm still working on my sunset sky packs. I really want to make sure the images are of the highest quality before I put them out, as my night pack ones are. Some really good work from all over the world in there. Some of my very best images, and you can download them in JPEG or in a 16-bit DNG file. Feel free to have a look at that as well. Also, if you do want to purchase Luminar Neo, you'll find a link down below, and there's also a code you can use, Jamie10, that gives you 10% discount as well. I am affiliated with the Luminar team. So I do like the product. I use it mostly as a plugin, as I explained. Yeah, have a look at that. If you like my video, then please click like, and always helps me on YouTube. If you've got any questions, any comments, or any tips you'd like to give me, love to see them. So put them again down below in the comments section. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Join me on this great adventure I'm having on YouTube, and also have a look at my back catalogue of videos. I've covered so many different things. I've had a great deal of fun doing all of this. So yeah, feel free to have a look at the videos that I've done up until now. Okay, let's get started. So we're going to aim to do a sky replacement here, because this is not a particularly interesting sky. And I think that with the sunlight coming from the left, we've got quite a nice sort of sun rays across the top of the buildings here in Florence. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a sky replacement. We're going to add a sun over here to accentuate this light, but we're also going to raise up the shadows. So as you can see, I shot for the highlights here, and actually thinking about it on the day, I should have bracketed and maybe gone for a lighter image as well. But this will work. Now, this is a Micro Four Thirds image shot on an Olympus EM1 Mark II. Great little camera, nice for traveling, quite small. But you do get a little bit of restriction because the sensor size is a quarter of that of the full frame, so they can be a little bit noisy. So if I zoom in for it, let's just open up the shadows here a second and just raise the exposure, and then we just have a zoom in, and we'll have a look at the levels of noise. Let's go to 200%, and you can see there's a fair bit of noise there. Maybe we'll go to 300% just to really show it. So you can see the noise. So, I mean, modern Micro Four Thirds cameras are really quite good. And the very latest Micro Four Thirds sensors, which are backside illuminated as well, are really very, very good indeed. So, but you can work with this. I mean, it's really not a problem. So what we would do straight away is let's just run a denoise on this. We'll go with 50%, and we'll just click enhance. Now it's only a 20 megapixel image, so it won't take too long to do. As you can see up there, it's just taking about five seconds or so. But you can see straight away that the noise is gone. I mean, really exceptional function, the denoise. These new AI features in Lightroom and Photoshop actually are exceptional. So I'm quite happy with that now. We can add a little bit of sharpening as well, just to really boost it just a little bit more, and that works quite well. So what should we do here? Well, I want to accentuate this light. I want to try to bring a warm glow into this area, and as I say, we're going to do a sky replacement. So I think what we should do, a little bit of advanced masking. We're going to go into masks here. So first thing I'm going to do is I just want to brighten the sky just a little bit. So I'm going to select the sky mask. It's just going to pick that sky mask there. I'm just going to add a little bit more contrast because that will help with these trees back here. And it will also strengthen the edge. So when we do the sky replacement, it will work quite well. So to mask the bridge, we're going to first go to radial gradient, and I'm just going to pull a radial gradient out here. So the brightest area is over this side where the sunlight is, and it's going to fade across the bridge. As you can see, it sort of fades away. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the three little dots here, go to intersect with, and go to objects. And now I can select the size of my object here. Just going to paint over the elements of the bridge that we want to capture. Here we go. Just make sure we get the bridge piers as well. So what the object's going to do is, because it's interacting with the radial gradient, you'll see that the gradient falls away. Now if I go back to the radial gradient here and actually pull that back, you can see that I can have more effect here, less effect there. So what we can now do is we can brighten that bridge up. So let's go to exposure. Now we're inside that mask. We can brighten that bridge up. Here we go. So it's a similar sort of brightness. Okay, I know it's in shadow from where the sun's coming from, but what we're doing is creating a little bit of fine art here. So we're having a little bit of play with the light. So I'm going to add in some temperature as well, just to bring that up, and add the magenta. The magenta is what gives you this beautiful orange. So add some magenta to that as well. There we go. And then what we can always do is add a little bit of saturation just to make it pop. Now, it still looks slightly misty compared to the main buildings, and how we deal with that is by adding some contrast. So it's going to add some contrast in there, and you can see that starts to look very realistic, very much the same as it is over here. So that's looking quite nice there. I think that works out quite well. The trees up here, there's a little bit of mistiness above the bridge. Okay, so we want to try to deal with that as well. So what we're going to do is we'll zoom in to that area. Just going to use the space bar to move us across so we can see that area there. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new mask. We're going to go to object selection. We're going to make the brush a little bit smaller. And what we're going to do is we're going to basically paint along the top there and pick up that area, go around the building here, and just select with the object that area there. So we've got there's the trees, but it overlaps. Look, you can see it overlaps here. So what we do is, whilst we're in this object mask, we subtract a brush, and we make sure the feather is at 0 and the flow is at 100, so we get the maximum impact. And I'm just going to click once here on the bridge. You can see just at the top of the bridge there, and then I'm going to go over to this side over here, hold down the shift key and click again, and it will draw a dead straight line along there. Now you can see I need to go a little bit higher there. Now because I clicked over here, I can still hold down the shift key, bring it up a little tiny bit here and click again, and there we go, it's drawn that straight line across there. There's a little bit on that house here, so I'm just going to take a smaller brush, but now I'm going to add in some feather because I just want a little bit of a feathered edge to this brush as I go around to remove from the house there. Just remove that. There we go. So that's how you get a really fine mask onto one area using the object, intersecting it with the brushes. Gives you a really good mask. So now what we can do is we can look at that and say, right, we need to increase the contrast. You can see we can increase the contrast, and that will take away that mistiness. However, it's darkening the top but not the bottom. So what we can do to even further use this mask in a more flexible way is, with the object we can auto intersect with a linear gradient, and we can pull a linear gradient up from the bottom like so. So there's our linear gradient there, you see. So it's 100% here and 0 effect there. So now when we affect the contrast, it will be more towards the bottom and less towards the top. Can you see that? If I make that a little bit shorter, you'll see that more of the effect. So I can deal with just the bottom part of that here. So I want it to go a little bit higher. And bear in mind, it stays within. If I hover over mask, you'll see that it's just doing the tree area. So what we're able to do is just affect that sort of bottom area there. If I bring that down ever so slightly more, what we can also do is just take away some of the shadows, and that will just darken it a little bit more as well. Bring that contrast back a little bit, and now we've got rid of that. So if I do the before, there we go, and the after, that's how you can deal with those sort of misty halo effects that you can get. Now whilst I'm in close here, I do notice that through the arches here it's very bright. So if we go back to this mask here, mask number 2, you'll see that we're actually still brightening these areas. So whilst we're in mask number 2 and we can go to the radial gradient, what we can do is we can subtract from that radial gradient a brush. Okay, and what we're going to do with this brush is we're going to make the feather quite small, about 10%, 100% flow. Let's just zoom in even more. I know this is going to look a bit crazy because we can see the pixels, but what I'm able to do now is just make my brush pretty well the size of the arch, and just click around inside that arch to remove that brightness. Same on this side, just click round just to get it, make it a little bit smaller here, just to get it into that tight area. You can take a smaller brush just to finish it off and bring down that brightness, because it is just a bit too bright in that area there. You can also use the shift pull as well to give the straight lines with your brush as you go around. So just going to darken that down. Same over here, just darken that down. We'll use the shift click to just go up around. Make that brush a little bit bigger, just take that out there. There we go. Same over here, we can take a small brush in that corner, click, and then shift click. That's it. And then we can just work our way around just to, again, darken this. So what we're in fact doing is, as you can see from the mask, is we're just removing this part of the mask. We're subtracting the mask from inside this area. So if I hover over there, you can see that we now have removed it from there. We can probably be a little bit tight around there just to make it work. Same here, just freehand we're almost working at pixel level here. So when we zoom back out, it will hardly be noticeable. But just want to make sure that we get that mask removed. So if I hover over the mask again, there we go. Those arches are clear. So if we zoom back out, they'll now be not as bright as they were previously. So there's the before, there's the after. You can see what's through the arches is the same because we removed that mask, and there's the mask that we created. So, and it's quite sophisticated use of masks, but actually once you're able to master the use of masks, it's amazing what you can do and how you can apply your effects. And you can see here we're able to create a subtle lighting effect on this building that nobody would ever know that you'd altered that. So let's zoom all the way out. Let's just go to fit. And I just want to light this area up here as well. We've got that area over there. We've got this area over here. So to mask this area over here, what we're going to do is create a mask, go to Object, take quite a big brush this time so we can do this. So we're just going to paint over the buildings in this area, along that wall at the bottom, fill that area in, let go, and what the mask will do, it will grab that area that we've got there. Now, we don't want to just make changes to that because it'll be consistent across the whole mask. If we increase the exposure, it will just make the whole thing brighter. So what we need to do, make it a little bit brighter, is we're going to go down to the object selection in mask 4 here, go to the intersect with, okay, and then we're going to take a radial gradient and we're going to pull a radial gradient into this area here. Okay, so there's the radial gradient I've just pulled. So we can turn it to reflect the direction of the street, like so. And now it's only on this area. So let's add in that color that we did before with using the temp slider. Remember to put the magenta in, always helps. A little bit of saturation, just to make it pop a little bit more. And I'm going to add in some contrast. Here we go. This is the real magic. It really brings it sort of as though it's almost reflecting from the other side of, off the water to the other side over here. So I think that looks really nice. So that's pretty good. I'm quite happy with that. So what we'll do now is we will go and do, let's just come out of masks, and we will do a quick crop because I don't like this little bit of the bridge down here in the bottom corner. So we're just gonna come up and pass that area there. Just going to bring this down from above. What we could even do is we could bring that up a bit further and put the bridge on the rule of thirds line there, because we're going to make a real subject of this sky. Let's just see if we go into custom within the crop section here and pick a 1610. Yeah, that's okay. We can just make that 1610 a little bit bigger. That seems to work quite well. I do want a little bit just to the right of that there. So let's go for a 16:9 ratio. Gives us a little bit more of a sort of panoramic look there. And I'm just going to squeeze that out. So happy with that. So just going to hit return. Now, the last thing I do before we're going to go to do this sky replacement is we're just going to check the perspective here. So I'm just going to go down to transform. I'm just going to click auto just to see if that corrects it for us. Not sure it does. So I'm going to go to guided. And what I want to do is make sure this tower is dead straight over here on the right. And I want to make sure these buildings over here are also straight. So I'm just picking straight lines along the gutter there and over here. And then maybe we can make the bridge the horizontal in this shot. There we go. I think that works very, very well. So now we're ready to do the sky replacement. So today I'm going to use Luminar Neo. So I'm going to right click, go to editing, and instead of doing Photoshop, I always do Photoshop. So we'll try something a little bit different. We'll go to Luminar Neo. Here we go. And you can use Luminar Neo as a plugin, and I do like to use the Luminar products as plugins. I don't tend to use the whole software from beginning to end. I do like the way Lightroom works. But as a plugin, Luminar Neo is really excellent. So I'm just going to click Neo. it's going to give us a couple of options here. And the one option we do want to make sure is ticked is edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments included, which is all we've done in the image so far. So we click edit. It will now load Luminar Neo for us. And here we go. Now, when you first go into Luminar Neo, you'll note that there's a couple of sort of buttons at the top. Extras are some, you can purchase some extra functionality within the image, within the software if you want to. You've got the presets, which is what we're on, so you can literally go through here, pick something, and then you can just hover over and play with different things yourself. Personally, I'm not a big presets fan. I prefer to do the work myself. That's part of the real enjoyment I get from doing the photography and doing the post-processing. So I click edit here, and then I have the functionality to control everything here. Now, it can look a bit daunting. There's an awful lot of things down here on the right hand side, but we're just going to use a couple to do the sky replacement and just adapt the image slightly. So I'm going to go to sky. That's where I'm going to start. And then once the sky module opens, you'll get the sky selection. So I'm going to click on sky selection. And if you basically go all the way down to the bottom, you can add your own skies. That's what the plus button's for, and that will take you into your file system. Or you can use any of the skies that's provided with Luminar Neo. Now, I've already loaded my sky in here, the one I want to use today. So this one is here. So I'm going to click on that, and it will automatically apply that. There we go. So that's been applied to the scene. So you think, well, wow, that's it. It's done. Well, I think what we do need to do is just do some little alterations to make it really fit and make it really work with this image. So underneath, you will find that you've got some sort of subsections, and sky orientation is the first one. So we can actually move the sky around, make it fit. You see here just above the bridge, it's not looking particularly good there. And also I want the sun further over this way so we can accentuate this sort of light on the buildings. So I can move the sky from left to right using the horizontal positioning. You can see there I can move the sky left or right, so you can put the sun over here. I can also change the vertical position, so that's the bottom of the sky image there. So I'm just going to pop that down there, and I can also move the horizon up and down as well as the vertical. So if you move the horizon up and down, it adapts the image slightly, but you can see the sun there. So we can also flip left to right by using this key here. So we could, if we wanted to, put the sun over that side and bring it over this way. So we could move the sky from left to right as such. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to bring the sky over this way and bring the sun to about here. I think that works quite well. So now we've done that, we can refine the mask. So we've got this sort of global closed gaps and fixed details. So the global's got the biggest effect. That looks at areas like over here where you see the mask isn't completely sort of allowing the sky behind through. So if I move the global to the right, I can actually get a little bit more out of that. And if I go all the way to the right, you can see I can get even more out of it. So that's fine. I just want to make sure that the vertical position is where we want to be. We don't want to line, that's it, the line's behind the bridge. You can also close the gaps. If you've got trees, for example, in the scene and the sky's behind it, then you can end up with some of the sky not showing through. So closing the gaps can often help with that as well. You can see over here where these trees are. If I move that from left to right, you see you get ever so slightly different effect, and it just works in a little bit more around. And Luminar Neo sky replacement is exceptionally good. I mean, for example, if you look at these aerials, that that it's actually worked in around that, and you can actually add a little bit more detail to that with the fixed detail. You can go to the right, and it will actually really fine tune those edges there. So you get a really good mask edge as we come through. Now, this area over here, we're going to accentuate in a minute, so I'm not too worried about this at the moment. This works okay. Now, you've also got below the mask refinements, you've got the scene relight. So we can actually relight this scene to match the color of the sky by moving the relight strength to the right. So if I move that over, you can see that we can have more of that sky color on these buildings just to match the two together. I don't want too much. I'm going to go probably around about 50. You can also increase the saturation on these buildings by using the relight saturation slider. So you can really pick up that color there, you see. So again, I'm not going to go too much on that. The bottom slider is if you've got human beings in the shot, you can use that to relight them as well. Then you've got the reflection slider. So obviously whatever's in the sky up here needs to be reflected down here. So the more you go to the right there, the more you'll see that sky reflected up there. But we'll come back to this when we go back into Lightroom, and we'll light this a little bit more. You can also blur the water a little bit. You've got a water blur and you can do that. But in this case, because we've got a shadow and a light area, the reflection's only in the light area. So you end up with quite a harsh line between the two. So I'm not going to use any water blur on this shot. And the last one you've got is sky adjustments. And you can defocus the sky if you had an image where the sky would be defocused behind like a bokeh effect. We're not going to do that. We're not going to add grain. We spend all our time trying to get rid of the noise. You can add in a atmospheric haze. I can put that in, and then you get like a haziness around the edges, which can look quite authentic, but I'm not going to put that in today. We can change the warmth of the sky. We can back it off, or we can increase it. In this case, we've already got enough color in the sky, so I'm not too worried about that. And then we can also adjust the brightness. And I'm just going to bring the brightness down just a little bit because this sky is very, very bright over here. I don't want to go too far so that we lose the ability to alter this. So I'm just going to drop that down -17. So I'm happy with that. So that's the sky function there, and you can do a before and after to look at the sky that you've got in there. Now, what you can also do is we can build to this sun over here, and we can do that with a wonderful little section here called Sunrays. Now, in Sunrays, you can place the sun. If you can change the position of the sun if you want to, but you click on place the sun and you get a little dot here, and you just put it where the sun is over here. Okay. Now, what we can do once that's there, we can open this amount slider up, and if I go a bit crazy here and I'll bring that up, you can really accentuate the sun with the rays coming from over there. Okay, that's obviously too much, so we're just going to back that down to about sort of 10, 12, somewhere around there. We're going to reduce the overall look slightly down to about 25, and we're going to just shorten the sun rays a little bit because they're a bit longer. They're going right off the edge of the page there, so we're just going to shorten those just a little bit, and we're going to reduce the penetration. Okay, because if you have more, you get more of that sort of glow. You can really go high, or you can back it right off so there's nothing there. So we're just going to find that balance, which I think is sort of around about there, about 26. In the sun settings, you can alter the amount of glow that you've got. So you can increase the size of the sun, you can decrease the size of the sun. We can do that. So I'm going to go here again around about 30. I'm going to reduce the sun glow just a little bit. Let's say around about 50. And that was the radius of the sun glow, sorry. And then the amount of the sun glow is dealt with here. So if you have little, you'll just have the glow there. You've got very faint lines. We're going to go a little bit more because I'd like to see the sun rays just biting into the image below. So we can bring that up probably to about there. I'm going to increase the penetration slightly and just back off the amount again, just to find that balance point between the two. So I think that's not looking too bad. We go down into the ray settings and we can actually increase or decrease the number of sun rays. So we can actually have more sun rays if we want to, and we can have less sun rays if we want to. So I'm going to go with quite a high number, around 50. And the randomize allows you to just come up with completely different sort of, I'll move it across there. You can see all the different sun rays. They're all very random, and you can pick one that you think, well, that works really quite well. So I'm just moving across until I find something that works reasonably well. And I think that works very well indeed. And then the last segment in here is the warmth of the sun. Now, we want to make it a little bit warmer because this is all very warm over here. So I'm going to increase the warmth of the sun just to bring that sort of warmer, yellower sort of color over there. And also just going to not too much on the sun rays, because the sun rays can actually they can look quite good when they're not too warm. So I'm going to go around about there. Once you get to the end, don't feel like you can't go back and make changes from before. I mean, I can go back to the penetration slider and we can increase that penetration, decrease it. We can increase our sunray lengths. Just trying to find something that we think works quite well. You can increase the overall look, and then the whole thing, you can add more effect if you want to. You can really go crazy with that one. So it's going to probably come back in there around about 24. So don't worry about actually having a play with these and seeing what works well. So done the sky replacement, got the sun in. I think that works very well. One last thing I'm going to do whilst we're in here is I'm just going to go into enhance at the top. It's got a quite a nice sky enhancer, does Luminar Neo, and I can just enhance that a little bit. I don't want too much. We can change the saturation later when we go back into Lightroom, but I'm just going to give that a little bit there. And then you've got this accent, and the accent works quite well. If you put a lot of it in, it sort of lights up the whole scene and gives you quite a nice effect. I'm not going to do too much on that. I'm just going to come in around about 60, back the sky enhancer off slightly. There we go. So I'm happy with that. So I'm not going to do any more in Luminar Neo for now. I'm going to take this back into Lightroom and we can just finish the image off. So I'm going to click apply, and that will send it back into Lightroom where it came from. There we go. So you have the before and you have the after. We've put the sky in. So we just need to boost the image down here a little bit more. We need to do a little bit more with the sky. I'm just going to take away the data up there. So just to finish this image off, we're going to go back into the masks. And now you don't have the mask that you had before, because now this is a TIFF that's come back from Lightroom. So it's been from Luminar Neo. So it's been re-rendered. So what we're going to do is we're going to just select the sky. And I'm just going to back off the saturation a little bit. It was just a bit too much. There we go. That looks a bit better. And I think the sun looks okay over here. I'd like a little bit more detail around this area here. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new mask. We're going to select a brush. We're going to have quite a high feather and about 50% flow. I'm going to take a small brush, just like so. And we're going to boost the contrast. And we're just going to paint across here just to bring that in. And I'm going to darken it ever so slightly. There we go. And it looks like the sun is sort of coming over the top there. So that looks good. So that was using just a brush in that area there. We need to get this reflection up here down into the water. That's really important, otherwise it doesn't look natural. But of course, there's the shadow line, so we need to boost it up this way. So how we do that is we create another mask, another radial gradient. We need to be in line with that. You see, we need to come down here. So we're just going to pull a radial gradient here like so. So we'll put quite a large one. I'm going to boost the exposure so you can see that it's similar to that. We need to match the color. Okay, so I'm just going to bring that over there on the temp, add in that little bit of magenta to balance it off. That looks okay. It's a bit bright, so I'm just going to back it off slightly. Now, what we can do is if we make that bigger, so we got that sort of whole sky glow there, we can right click, we can duplicate this mask. Okay, and then what we can do with this top mask now is we can make this one a little bit less bright, but we can put in a smaller radial gradient, just like so, and just find the balance with light to see that it just lights up that area. I'm just going to go back to the previous mask here, and I'm just going to add a little bit of contrast in there, and I'm going to add in some clarity, quite a bit of clarity, to make it sort of pop on the water, if you like. When you add clarity, it actually gets brighter. So you just need to go and bring down that exposure just a little bit. You can see that's working quite well. I'm going to go back to the mask, the smaller mask here, make it a little bit narrower, and I'm just going to make it a little bit brighter, so it sort of matches there a little bit more, a little bit longer. Now I don't want it lighting up this whole area here, so inside that mask I'm going to subtract a brush. I'm going to take a brush with quite a bit of feather, and I'll go 100% on the flow, And I'm just going to take a large brush here, and where the edge of the feather is needs to be right by the edge of the shadow itself. You don't want the edge of the actual brush, you want the edge of the feather. So I'm just going to wipe across there like so, and that just takes that out on the takes the radial gradient out that's before that. And then I'm going to go to the previous mask. I'm going to do the same thing, subtract a brush. I'm going to leave it at the same level, probably just drop the flow just a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing and just wash through there. And you can see that it maintains that shadow as we go through there. I want to brighten these buildings up over here. So create a new mask, radial gradient, take quite a large radial gradient, stick it in the center, rotate it so it falls in the same direction, like so. Just bring up the exposure slightly, add a bit of contrast to it, and maybe we could even throw in a bit of clarity just to really make that reflection stand out there. And I think we're getting pretty close. I think we just need a little bit more clarity on the bridge and on this side. So I'm just going to create a brush. I'm going to go with about 50% flow, roughly around there, quite a bit of feather. And I'm just going to paint that brush in here, across there like so. I'm going to paint it up through here as well. Just bring it in there. And then I'm going to boost the exposure slightly, add in that contrast that we've been playing with all along, add in a little bit more saturation just to balance those colors out, just so we've got a sort of balance in the image from left to right. I think that works very good. Yep, and I think that's starting to look pretty well. I'll just make that a little bit smaller. Just want to do something with the sky, almost there. So I'm going to create a new mask, a linear gradient this time. I'm going to pull one from the left here, and I'm going to add in more blue on this side over here. I don't want it on the buildings, so I'm going to intersect with the sky. Okay, so we don't want it on the buildings, just on the sky. I'm going to add a bit more blue in there on that side, just to really bring that blue up. And then we might even darken it slightly, just a little bit up there. And take another linear gradient, and I'm just going to take quite a short one this time, just to darken that top corner. Just going to bring that down a little bit more. Another linear gradient, so keep creating a mask. Bring it down from the top on this side, so you can see from an angle that way. I'm going to add in a little bit more color up there, a little bit more contrast, darken it slightly, just to really close that sky in. I think that works very, very well. I'm going to create another mask, select the whole sky, add in a little bit more contrast, and then we're going to put some clarity in there, really to make that sky just sort of really, really pop. Not too much, but we're going to go in at about 8 or so. There we go. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Think we need just a little bit more contrast in the water down here. So create another mask, a brush this time. We can go with the settings that we had before. Just going to highlight that area there with the brush. There we go. I'm going to add in clarity, and I'm going to add in saturation just to bring those colors up. There we go, just to match that sky up there. And I think we're pretty well there, you know. I think we're there. I think one last brush. Just going to take quite a large brush here. I'm going to add in a little bit of exposure, a little bit of contrast. I'm going to put some clarity into it. And then I'm just going to wash across these buildings, across the bridge a bit more. Just picking that up. And I'd say, you know what, I think we're done. I'm happy with that. So Florence, 4 o'clock in the morning. Where did we start? That's where we started. An image that probably looked like you were never going to do anything with it. We put in that, brightened the building, brightened the bridge, and we then added in the sky replacement. And I think it works very, very well indeed. Now I'm looking at it in full screen. I think it's a little bit too much contrast on the whole image. So I'm just going to go back to the whole image here and just back the contrast off slightly. And I'm going to back the clarity off slightly as well, just a little bit, just to soften that sky. We can open up the shadows just a little bit more, bring down those highlights slightly. I'm just going to check my blacks and my whites. Going to hold down the Alt or Option key, grab the slider. You can see the reflection in the waters there is very bright, so that's fine. And then I'm going to go to the same with the blacks, hold down the Option or Alt key, add in a little bit of black, just crush those blacks a little bit, and then I'm just going to brighten the whole scene slightly. And the very last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the effects, post-crop vignette. I'm going to put in about a -20 post-crop vignette, but really important when you do post-crop vignettes is to open up the feather. That just opens up the center there. So there we go. Hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. If you did, please click like. It always helps me on YouTube to have likes. And if you would like to comment, feel free to do so down below. Also, love your questions and any tips that you might have. So, yeah, welcome that. And also, if you haven't already subscribed, it would be great for you to join me on this journey here on YouTube. And of course, you can go back and look at my old videos. I have over 80 at the moment on there. So feel free to go back and see some of the other things that I've done. But for now, I'm going to say bye-bye.